Teresa, thank you so much. I deeply appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate you having me.
Yeah, as I mentioned to you in the correspondence there, that I'm a huge World War II buff, and when it comes to history and things like that, and one of the big things I was a big fan of was the episodes on the Travel Channel with you in about World War II, UFOs, and Nazis. So,
Yeah.
I've always been a big fan of history and stuff like that. But before we jump into that stuff right there, you got Grush, Graves, and Favor doing the whistleblower stuff up there in Washington and stuff. So, what is your like? I guess you could say like your feelings and the way that those hearings went.
Yeah, it's kind of how I expected it would turn out. A lot of effort, but at the end of the day, I'm not sure how much we got accomplished. That was when I was a lobbyist in DC on the issue, that was kind of my sense of it. I was just kind of banging my head and not really going to get very far. And so that
Right.
was actually when I decided I left DC in 2020. And then that was when I decided I was better off looking at history and historical UFO um, cases and incidents, because you're just not going to get very far with anything now. We're just not. I think they made a
Yeah.
really good effort, but at the end of the day, it comes down to national security, and and I'm not waiting for my government to give me permission to believe. Like
That's
I
yeah.
don't ask them. I don't
I
ask
feel you on
them.
that.
Yeah, I don't ask them for permission for other things to, for what I should believe. So, it's not really making much difference. I mean, I think it would be really cool if we could, there are a lot of certainly implications otherwise, just beyond confirming there's extraterrestrial life. And those will, I don't know what they have planned, for that stuff, to like new technology, rolling that out. I don't know, but I agree with you. I think history actually is where it's at, and I think kind of for me, the more I looked at history, the more I realized, oh my gosh, we've been being visited for a very long time, and the
Yeah.
Nazis knew.
Oh yeah, for sure. And one of the biggest things, so these guys, you got Commander Fravor and you've got Ryan Graves, out there doing their thing with the Navy and flying these jets, and they come across these so-called Tic Tacs. So these things are moving in ways that we know none of our aircraft can do and whatnot. But then you go back and you think about the Foo Fighters
Mhm.
and the way that these things moved with all that what was going on over I guess the channel over there, and with the allies and the British.
Mhm. Yeah, it goes back far. I mean, like you said, the Foo Fighters and World War II. I don't think we had that kind of technology then. I don't think that was us. I don't think that was China. I don't think that was anybody else. That was what I call it, the ancient advanced presence. I know NHI right now, non-human intelligence is the hot new word, but really do believe it's an ancient advanced presence. It's been here since the beginning, and yeah, they were with us in World War II. They were monitoring stuff. The Nazis knew about it. The Nazis, they spent a vast amounts of resources going on archaeological digs, and
Oh
they went
yeah.
all the way up to Tibet. They and then they had the
Yeah.
Die Glock, and the Hanabus. And so I think they really started with the back engineering. But I just really feel like history is where the answers are, and they were recorded.
Yeah.
All of this stuff was recorded. And I definitely commend Grush and Fravor. I think Fravor spoke at one of my MUFON meetings in Maryland. Really great guy. I think they're very brave to have come forward. Tim Burchett from Tennessee has been awesome, and Luna from Florida, she's been
Yeah.
great. I think we have had some really cool. I think we've gotten farther than we ever have. I mean, we literally had an Air Force, I guess, former Air Force officer saying, yes, there is a non-human intelligence that has been here. That's pretty cool. Most people don't seem to be paying attention, which I find interesting. But
There's
maybe
always
that's also a
something.
good thing.
Yeah, there's always something that comes up that'll, take, the focus of what was popping up with these hearings, and then they throw in, something else to, oh, look, squirrel, and we go running off to somewhere else.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. We totally do. And I think honestly, I think most people really aren't paying attention unless it affects their lives directly. But when I was in DC and when I was on the Hill, I mean, I was shocked how many people they would find out, oh, you're the alien lady. Oh my gosh. Everybody had a story. Like, I didn't get, oh, you're the crazy lady and, go away. But everybody had a story. Even Congress people. I was at a dinner one night and there was a congresswoman and she actually broke down into tears telling me her UFO encounter. So, I think a lot has been done to remove stigma.
yeah,
That's
it
been
is
good.
it's a big stigma. I mean, you like you said, I people are afraid to come out about it because I personally think that they don't want to say anything is because they don't want to be perceived as like, oh man, let's step away from that whole situation and
Right.
subject and go somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that is, yeah, the stigma on the whole UFO UAP, I believe it's a huge thing. And I mean, well, how many, as we dig into our history and stuff, and we have presidents that have come in so with the idea of that they've seen something in the sky themselves. I mean, even way back as I I guess it's the whole Holloman Air Force Base situation where was it, I can't remember if it was it Truman who apparently was out there and was greeted apparently by something at Holloman.
Yeah. It might have been Truman or yeah, but yeah, you're there. I mean, there's even footage allegedly from that instant, and it's
Yeah,
pretty wild. You can go on YouTube and you can see where somebody is secretly filming as they're walking with a group of these short little creatures in turtlenecks, and one of
yeah,
them. Have you seen this footage? You know what I'm
yeah.
talking about? Yeah.
Well, not only that, if I'm correct, I could be wrong on this, but if I am correct, I believe that they produce some type of military pamphlet to hand out to certain soldiers on the whole aspect of, hey, this is almost like a meet and greet pamphlet if we see or come in contact.
Yeah, they do. And actually, somebody I know that's former MUFON just did some training with like local first responders. What do you do if you encounter, a UFO, UAP? This is what you're supposed to do. And the Air Force Academy actually used to have a chapter in one of their textbooks all about the UFO UAP phenomenon. There's other life. I don't know. Have you seen that? That's pretty cool,
I,
John. That
I
chat.
might have to look a little bit further into that rabbit hole on those pamphlets and the the,
Yeah.
the chapter book, but I believe I did hear something on that, which is
Yeah,
pretty wild.
it was a chapter from one of the textbooks at the Air Force Academy. I don't remember what years it was in there, but when you look that up and you read about it, and I knew some Air Force Academy grads, and I asked them about it, and I said, yeah, that was in there, So it's like I think what it seems like we have a plan for slow disclosure. I don't know that there's going to be an announcement by the president yes, the extraterrestrials have been here, and they're here. They've always been here. They'll continue to be. I don't what unless that they really needs a distraction for something. I don't. But Steve Bassett, I was just on a podcast with him, and he was saying that it could really benefit somebody to do that and then run on that topic in the next election, because we have a
Yeah,
huge contentious election coming up. And he
I
was
don't get
making the
political.
argument.
I'm just like, I shake the dust off and just kind of like, I don't get too deep into that hole, but
Yeah, I know. I hear you. Yeah,
and
yeah. That's
that's
probably best.
yeah. I'd rather look to the stars than to the idiots.
Yeah, right. I know. I'd rather go with them. Yeah,
Yeah,
but Steve Bassett was making a really good argument that if somebody would take control of this issue, it would really elevate them to the top of. It would be in their favor for the next election. I don't know if anybody will do that, but it was a good argument that he made. But I think that I think there's enough information out there that if you want to know the truth, I think it's documented, and I think people are smart enough to do their own critical thinking and reading and put the pieces together for yourself. And all of the great holy books, what were they talking about with these people who were coming from the sky? And when
yep,
we look back now on stuff like that, it's just not so magical anymore to have somebody flying in the sky. um, so what were they documenting?
yeah.
And
I
you
mean,
can.
like you said, you could see it. It's everywhere. I mean, even in
Yeah.
hieroglyphs and all- cave images, the sky people. There's
Hmm.
just so much out there, and it's now. I I I mean, do you think right now it's just oversaturated with so much UFO stuff? I mean, if you look around, I mean, you can Google anything and everything now pops up on a screen. And do you think a lot of people are jumping on the bandwagon to hopefully find something more, especially with all this new AI stuff? It's kind of hard to see what's real and what's not real.
Yeah, I think that's the real issue. And that's a big part of why I also decided to focus my research on pre-industrial revolution, because it's almost impossible to distinguish now, what's AI generated, like you said, what's
Hmm.
ours, what's a foreign country, what's possibly other. It's just impossible. So, but when you look back at historical um, cases and documentation, I think for me that was very eye opening. Like Congress, I just realized I'm spinning my wheels and wasting my time. It's just
Uh,
that's the way it was.
let me jump back a little bit here, and I want to go back to something here. So with the whole, the whole German aerospace development and stuff like that. So they say, what was it, 1936? Apparently a UFO crashed in the Black Forest, and that the possible right took this to the castle and were so-called back engineering what they had found.
Yeah, a lot of these stories like that are really interesting. I don't know what the evidence is for that case,
Right.
specifically, but I know the evidence is overwhelming that the Germans were working on this technology, and
Oh
they
yeah.
certainly seem to view it as an ancient technology. They had archaeological teams all over the world. I mean, they sent guys to Tibet. You can look up, photographs of Nazis, sitting there with Buddhists, asking them about what's documented. What were the flying vimanas, and what do you have documented for that? So they certainly did their due diligence in doing the research for this. And then, people have seen photos. They had the Die Glock,
Mhm.
which was and the Hanabus, which were disc-shaped craft. And what I find really interesting is, there are some places where they were supposedly landing these things. And this is actually in one of Tom DeLonge's books. They have these circular concrete pillar structures that they're landing them on, because apparently, I don't know, they don't have landing gear, they don't go straight on the ground, but they're landing them on these. I'm sure you've seen the pictures, these concrete pillared structures. And then that kind of starts to remind you of other places like Stonehenge.
Yeah,
What
that
was
it
that, a
it
landing
takes
zone?
that. Yeah, it
Yeah.
takes that image, and it's just like, holy, yeah. Is it
Yeah.
possible that these things were? That's what it was, like an airport for UFOs. You know?
Right. Yeah. And then even Göbekli Tepe, that's the oldest archaeological site that we are aware of right now, I think. And same thing, it's the same kind of layout. It's these pillars in a circular shape. Is this, do they have to land on a structure? Or can they not? I don't know what the landing situation is, but I do know that they have created these circular concrete structures for these things to land on. And the Germans knew that, and they built some. And I forgot which one of Tom DeLonge's books that's in, but, it actually talks about that in one of the stories where, the kid during World War II, he witnesses one of these crafts landing on there. But and then when you look around the world, you can kind of see that. Wow,
Yeah.
that maybe like you said, these were like disc airports. But maybe they're too hot. I mean, really, if they're, I don't know what they're running on. A lot of people have speculated as to what their fuel source is, and but if it's if it is radiation, I mean, maybe it does need to be off the ground, and I don't know. I mean, you can think of a lot of reasons why that would make sense for them to have to land off the ground like that.
Well, the Germans had the Hanbus. There were, I think there were three different types, and
Mm-hmm.
then apparently, actually, was it Bob Sparing? He looked at the possible video evidence of one of these so-called craft flying that was apparently like recorded in, I don't know, the 30s, the late 30s.
Yeah, and then we brought all of that here. That's the I think people forget that. We at the end of the war, we brought, well, the Russians brought some guys over too, but we brought those guys over in paperclip, and then they went into
It's
NASA.
just, I've got the Annie Jacobson's book, Operation Paperclip. Have you read that?
Yeah.
Ooh, talk about falling down a rabbit hole. There
Yeah.
is,
I mean, and people forget that this, these are real historical events.
yeah.
And
I
so
mean,
we brought those Nazi scientists over with all of their flying disc technology and whatever archaeological digs and evidence, all of that we brought here. It went into NASA, it went into Los Alamos, it went to what's now Area 51.
yeah.
So we have that. And what would that look like 100 years later? It's just mind boggling to think about.
Yeah, the whole Area 51 S4 Bob Lazar thing. I know Bob's like, I told you, he's, but I know it's just one of those things. It's, the whole back engineering. Like, I mean, you, like you said, you look back when, we sucked up over 1,400 high ranking scientists, Nazis, and we gave them jobs. We brought them here to the States. And, you got von Braun, Werner von Braun, the head NASA guy. And it's just like, holy crap, our space program was built pretty much by the Reich in some sense. I hate saying it that way, but that's what it was.
Yeah, and then how much of our other sciences and technologies, were based off of, Nazi, like you said, the Reich. What else did they bring? But yeah, people forget this, and what I find especially interesting about the past few years, with the hearings, and then NASA chimed in, the NASA actually said, no, we haven't found any evidence of any sort of extraterrestrial life. Well, that's obviously, completely the opposite of what the Air Force is saying, these Navy guys are saying, yeah, these congressmen. So somebody's lying. Which one is it? Or maybe it's all in the wording. Well, we haven't found the evidence. It doesn't mean it's not, they don't exist. That was probably the most interesting part, is why is NASA not NASA doesn't seem to be on board. That's interesting, especially because they were founded by the Nazis were sort of their foundation with their Hanabus.
Yeah, I mean, you think back and you look at everything, and it's just like it's mind blowing. The stuff that these men did to other people, experiment wise, to understand where they were going with their whole aerospace development and their rockets, their what were the ones that they first started using were the buzz bombs, running those. And I think it was Nick Pope's grandparents, former what was he, the defense guy from England, like he talked about once his grandparents, when they would hear that, they would be more worried about the cutoff on that and then the drop, so it's just like you go back to all these things and everything that these guys created just to basically destroy, to try and take over. And then when they realized everything was going to go downhill, it's like, all right, where do you want to go? You want to go to the West, or do you want to go to Russia? And most of them, whatever they could, they wanted to come here. And, they pretty much, we'll do whatever we got to do for you.
Yeah, and like you said, that certainly there are a lot of horrific military applications to be destructive, but I think there are also, if we cannot destroy ourselves, in World War III, there are a lot of really incredible energy applications. We have the technology now to travel, we can go interplanetary, and what's stopping us, and how do we know we haven't done that already? There was that Gary McKinnon guy from the UK who evidently hacked into NASA, one of the government databases, and apparently found evidence of a Starfleet, So do we have this stuff? And, we're on the cusp right now of a space revolution. It's the next industrial revolution. It's the space revolution.
I am literally so pumped for for colonizing Mars. I hope. I just turned 49 yesterday. And oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, happy
birthday. I tell my kids, and I'm like, I really hope I'm alive to see some of what's about to come. Elon Musk, I mean, I'm a huge fan of Elon and what he does with SpaceX and everything. And I really hope that these mega crafts that he's building, are able to do what's got to be done to get us there, and to building something on the moon to give us that jump start, and to jump from one spot to another, I think would be fantastic. And I really hope to see that in my lifetime.
Yeah, I know. I was hoping we'd already be there because you and I are similar in age. And I thought we'd already, I'd be in my flying car going back and forth to Mars. I'm a little disappointed, but at
Yeah,
least it's happening.
no,
Yeah,
no
hopefully for
Jetsons
our
here
kids.
yet.
Yeah,
Having the
hopefully
Jetsons
for our
to,
kids. Right? Yeah, the Jetsons had me pumped. I was ready. You know, uh,
it you say things like that, and about God, man, you look back and you're like, you think of Star Trek. Look where we came from. Star Trek, they had tablets back in the 60s on the program they were using to talk to people with, and flip phones and everything, and here we are, little by little, we're actually using what they were using in the show in real life, and it's just getting better and better and better.
It is getting better. And I think the only thing holding them back from releasing this technology is, economics. They don't want to, really rock the market is probably my guess. And I don't know a lot of, I'm not an economics major. I don't know a lot about that, but I would guess that that's probably part of what's holding them back. And, and how do they want to use it? Probably they want to use this stuff for military applications first, but after every war, at least there's an upside to. I mean, war is not positive, but after every war, we've got some great technology. And even the internet came from the military. A lot of the stuff that makes our life great has come from military R&D. So I'm just waiting for this stuff to trickle down to us. And I'm grateful for these billionaires. I know a lot of people don't like the billionaire class, and I get it, but they're going to be the ones to take us to space. Bezos just said late last week, earlier this week, that 1 trillion people could fit on orbiting space stations. And that's kind of his vision. So Bezos is like doing the, orbiting space station idea, like Elysium kind of thing. And then
Yeah.
Musk wants to take us to Mars and have Mars colonies. And it's not going to be government who takes
Have
us.
you seen that? I don't know. Where the hell did I see that? I don't know if it was something I was scrolling through on Facebook, but the possibility of a hotel in space.
Yeah, yes, that is Bigelow. That's Bigelow's work. Bigelow's doing the space
Is that?
hotels. Yeah, and
Yeah. I mean, like,
he's here in Nevada. Um, and I have a quick story about Bigelow. So he was doing a Q&A on YouTube with a psychologist who has a podcast, and I watch him. And so I had the great pleasure to get to ask Bob Bigelow a question. Okay.
nice.
And so yeah, it was pretty cool. And so I asked him, I said, do you think it's a possibility that some of these old stories and mythologies and religions are based off of encounters with, other life, extraterrestrials, interdimensionals, just others? And he said, "Yeah, I think that's a really good possibility, Teresa, and yeah, I agree with that. And thank you for your question." And I thought, wow, and Bigelow is the one who did that interview on 60 Minutes with Laura, I forgot her last name. Laura Logan, is that right? And she was asking him about ETs, and she said, well, where are they? If there are ETs, where are they at? And he responded, well, it's right under your nose. And that was probably about 10 years ago now. But Bigelow's been telling us, he knows. He's awesome. And yeah, he's building the space hotels. So we're lucky that we have these guys who are going to take us to space. I don't know
For
what the
sure.
selection process is going to be, but
Yeah. Who's getting the golden ticket? Who's going to get the golden ticket?
Yeah, exactly. Do we have to buy a Wonka bar? I don't know.
Yeah.
But
It would be fantastic. Now, honestly, I don't see in my lifetime being able to hit a space hotel, but maybe my kids, they're still young and little guys, but hopefully something cool will come out of it, and I just the whole aspect of getting somewhere else and checking out other places and seeing, what is out there for us. It would be phenomenal. Really, really phenomenal.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I don't know if we'll see it because like you and I are similar in age, so I don't know if we'll see it if we'll get to go, but our kids certainly, will this I would imagine this will all be rolled out for our kids, and how cool that our kids get to go and maybe stay in a space hotel or even live on an orbiting ship like Elysium, or there was Interstellar, where
That
they.
that is my movie. I
Yeah,
love
I
that
love that
movie.
movie. Yeah.
Interstellar is my movie.
Yeah, well, that it really is. What do you like about it? Because I can watch it over and over. I bought
I
it.
I don't care if there's commercials or no commercials. If it's on, I will watch it. It's
Yeah,
just like Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze. I don't care what it's on, I'll watch that too. But
right.
Interstellar, Matthew McConaughey, I mean, it's it's just something about that whole, you know, everything with to do with time and the black hole and
Mhm.
the whole I just the way he came back, was still able to see Murph, but all the time they lost on that one planet, what was it, 7 years per minute,
Mhm.
you know and it's just, I don't know, it's so neat that we could put ourselves in some type of cryostasis for years and then wake up and just start going from where we left it off. It just, that whole aspect of it, I think, is just freaking phenomenal. I want to
Yeah.
see something like that.
I completely agree with you 100%. And I think Interstellar specifically, I think that movie has done the best job of visually explaining like space-time relativity and what, why time would be distorted, when you travel in space, and why gravity distorts time. Like
Hmm.
you just said, 7 Earth years for every 1 minute on that planet that had this super dense gravity and the giant waves, and um, those are things that we'll have to start thinking, like that. There's another one, Passengers, with Jennifer Lawrence, and again,
Great
they
movie,
were.
great movie.
Yeah, I like that one too. But he tries to send an email to Earth, and it's like, oh, you'll get it. Your email will get there in 7,300. It was just this absurd amount of time just to
Yep.
send a communication from the ship to Earth, and those are the kinds of challenges that we're going to be, thinking about in the future, and maybe our kids will be dealing with. And so I'm excited that we're going there. Our government's not going to take us, but the private billionaires, they will. They
Yeah.
will, and there's a lot of money to be made in space. I mean, they can. I mean, just mining alone is going to be huge money. There's a lot of money to be made there, so it's gonna revolutionize everything, our economy, our energy, our medicine, just every aspect of our lives will be changed. But I just kind of wish they'd hurry up because, like you said, I want to see it in my lifetime. Yeah.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Now, there was one of the coolest things about, I think it was Interstellar, was the whole fact, it left your mind wandering at the end. Like, okay, he took the ship at the end, he's leaving the so-called, I don't know what that thing was, where he ended up on, like the whole tubular, like it rotated where they were inside. It was like the kids hit the baseball and it goes through the window right above their head, and whatever
Right.
he left. But with him being able to have a type of craft like that, that's what I want to see. I want to see us having these type of small craft where one or two men can pilot it through and just coast around and see what's out there. I in some sense, I I wouldn't say Star Wars or anything like that, but kind of reminds you like Battlestar Galactica, the little fighter jets that just shot out and whatnot. But having something like that, but for him to hopefully leave there and meet up with her on that planet where she was building base camp and whatnot, and she had was it did she have TARS, or no, TARS was with him, but those
Cars
type
with
of
him. She had the embryos, so she was going to start
yes,
she was starting the new human population, and he had
the whole
the what
colonizing.
Lazar would call the sport model, to
Yeah.
to go out there. Yeah.
He with everything that is going on right now in the world, and it like you said earlier, it is crazy how everybody is jumping around talking about different things, and the whole tic tacs, and then you got these so-called aliens that they popped up in Mexico, and you got Ryan Graves, who was it Ryan who went down there and spoke at one of these
Yep.
hearings or something like that. And I don't know, the whole I don't even know where to go with that situation. I mean, it's just one of those things,
Yeah, that was pretty wild. I wasn't sure what to make of that either. It was interesting. It was, whoa, what are they what now we're coming out with bodies, like, that I'm not sure what to make of that. But I can look at, like, I guess I don't need that now. And I've been digging so much into various religious texts and mythologies from around the world, and the one common denominator of all of them is, the sky advanced sky people who come to visit and interbreed with us, basically. And that is consistent around the whole world, and I mean across time, to our oldest recorded history, literally carved into stone. And so I have I it seems to me that there's documentation that you certainly something other has been interacting with us from the very beginning. I don't know what to make of the Mexican mummies. That was,
Yeah.
that was interesting. Um, but
Let
like we were talking about earlier, it's almost impossible to distinguish now. What is ours? What is psyops? What is foreign? And then what truly is other. So for me personally, it's been very eye opening to go back and look at, like in India, the flying Vimanas. What was that? These flying cities they talk about, and in the Middle East, what would have been ancient Persia, they have the Zoroastrians had their god was Ahura Mazda, and he rode in a winged gold disc, and that iconography is everywhere, and most of it is modern day Iran now, but they even had a name for the craft that their god flew in, and they called them Faravahars. I mean, they have a name for these things. Yeah, that's Ahura Mazda flying in his Faravahar. Whoa, and that's who the Magi were. So the Magi who went to Jesus, who came from the East, they were a Magi. If you look up what Magi is, a Magi is a Zoroastrian priest. And literally, the symbol for the Zoroastrians, is a guy, a bearded man in a winged gold disc. And literally, it's just everywhere. But so the Magi were the priest class from that religion, and then it says, well, they followed a star. well, stars don't really move and lead
Right.
you. So what were they following? And their god, literally was a guy in a flying craft. So it's like they've been. I think Bob Bigelow said it best. It's been right under our nose the whole time, and we just didn't have the eyes to see. And if we just shift our perspective, and if for me, if I just shift my perspective just slightly, then it was like I was pretty shocked, really, because then it was everywhere. It was everywhere. Like the that winged Zoroastrian symbology with Ahura Mazda and his um, that's over the tomb of Xerxes. And Xerxes, he's biblical. He was known as the
Yep.
God King. And so, what is a God King? Well, what does that mean? Does that mean that he had, more genetics from the gods than the regular people? Because that's kind of how the historically how the royal class would have been seen as the intermediaries between man and the gods, because they had more of the genetics from the gods. So I mean, it's literally over his tomb, and you can see it's carved into stone. And you can go on Google Earth, because we can't really travel to Iran, right? But you can go on Google Earth. I wish we could, because the archaeology would just be mind blowing. But literally over in his tomb, you can see there are guys on the ground. It's all carved in, and then overhead, very clearly, there is a guy flying overhead of people. So they were telling you, and most people were illiterate. So the art had to be really it had to really speak volumes, because that was how they primarily communicated. And then Christian art, you can find the same thing. There's some
Oh yeah.
amazing, amazing art pieces. Like the Baptism of Christ is one that was done by Geert. Oh, I can't remember his last name, but he was from the Netherlands, and that was done in the 1600s, I want to say. And
Hmm.
literally, it's a disc overhead with beams coming out of it. And then when you read that passage in your Bible about the baptism of Christ, it says, uh, that when Christ was baptized, that the Holy Spirit came down on him. Well, what was that? And then you have this painting from the 17 or sorry 15 1600s, and it's a craft with the beams coming down. Is that what the Holy Spirit was? I mean, it's just like, wow, the art is just. Or there's another
Yeah,
one
that
that's
that
even older.
that painting is really wild.
You know the one I'm talking about, then.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, and then there's one that's even older from, it's like it's medieval, and it's Mother Mary with child, and then in the background, there's a glowing cloud, and then on the other side, there's like some kind of lit up craft, and then on the
Yep, I've
ground, there's
seen that one too.
a dog. Isn't that incredible? I mean,
It's
wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
So I really think that
who was
I
there?
think
Who was painting these? Like where did they come from? It's
yeah, there was this just common knowledge, back then. Is that did everybody just know, and they called it the gods and the angels, and is that what it was like? I don't know, but I think about these things, and I think it's worthy of talking about. What did everybody just know that there were other beings, and they just called them gods and angels, and that's just
yeah.
how they
Well,
lived.
for my listeners who don't know this, you are a descendant of is it now the spelling is different from yours now.
Hmm.
And it
Yeah.
was for the Bible translation.
Yeah, so I am a descendant of William Tyndale, and he was the first to translate the Bible into English. And actually, it's kind of weird. I'm descended on both sides of my family. My mother was adopted and didn't know that her mother was a Tyndale. And then my mother married a Tyndale. It is kind of weird, but
Yeah.
different spellings. But actually, they came from Pennsylvania. There, where in Newcastle is where a lot of the Tyndales were. But yeah, so on both sides of my family, it goes back to William Tyndale, the Bible translator, and he gave his life. He's a Protestant martyr, and he was the first to translate the Bible into English in defiance of the king and the Pope. Because at the time you had to go into the church and pay money, and then the priest would, translate a paragraph or two for you into English, and that was how you read your
Right.
Bible. And the Bible was huge. It was a giant, this giant huge thing that was chained down in the church. So there was no like pocket Bible, there was no English. And so William Tyndale spent his whole life learning, Hebrew, Greek, Latin, so he could translate the Bible into English. And one of his famous quotes was that he wanted the boy who plows the fields to be able to read the Bible just the same as anybody in the church. And then at that time, the printing press was also coming into play. That was a new invention.
Yeah.
So he translated the Bible into English, and then he had to run away to Germany because there was a bounty for him. But he was still on a mission, and he ran away to Germany, and he started printing pocket-sized Bibles. And he was the first one to make, a small pocket-sized Bible, thanks to in English, thanks to the printing press. And then, ultimately, one of his friends betrayed him, and he was strangled, and he was arrested and brought back to England and kept in jail, and then he was strangled and burned at the stake for doing that. And then a year later, the king translated a Bible, basically copied Tyndale's Bible and put his name on it.
Oh,
And then, yeah, so
I think we
uh,
know that Bible.
yeah, yeah. But
So,
I think it's interesting because every generation of my family have had UFO encounters, and
yeah.
every generation has been an experiencer or had UFO encounters. And so I really wonder, and that's just every living generation that I know, so that goes back to my
Do you
World War
guys
II.
have some type of magnetic draw? I mean,
Yeah, I don't know what the deal is. I don't know why us, but everybody has had UFO encounters. So it really makes me wonder if that, if William Tyndale if he has some kind of UFO encounter, and that's what inspired him to, because this
right.
was a motivated guy. I mean, he never married, he didn't have children. He gave his life to do this, and I wonder, did he have some kind of divine inspiration to do this? And then that makes a huge question of, well, did the English Bible translation actually originate from a UFO encounter? Like, it brings up all of these questions that are um they're just kind of, they're fun to think about.
I,
So yeah,
I, I
I'm
am,
very,
I am very big on the whole what if thing. Like,
yeah.
what if this is what happened, or what if is that what would happen? Especially for things like that. It's just like it opens your eyes. Like, did he have some type of encounter to do what he was doing, and he knew what was going to happen, but he did it anyway?
Yeah, I think it's worth thinking about, because how many people are that motivated? to give their life to do something like that, to make a huge contribution to society, and then have the king plagiarize it anyway. I mean, the poor guy.
Yeah,
um, but now Tyndall is given some of the recognition that he deserves. In the UK, there's a monument to him, and he's
that's awesome.
given, yeah, he's given more of the recognition that he deserves. But I really do wonder if he had some kind of divine inspiration, to or or continued, contacts to make him.
Right.
How did he get on this mission? That's and you really can't find much about that. Like stuff about
Yeah.
his personal life really is not discussed a whole lot, which is interesting. So yeah, I'm very proud to be able to trace my lineage to him, and I was published in the 50th anniversary of the Tyndale Society Journal.
Oh yeah.
How I met William Tyndall. It was actually, it was my grandma Tyndall, who I had no idea until probably my 30s. And then after the birth of my daughter, my grandma said, all right, well, I've been holding on to all of this family history, and, I'm going to give this to you now. And I was pretty blown away. Like, wow, grandma, you've just been sitting on this, the whole
Yeah.
time. And, because, my grandma had UFO experiences there in Pennsylvania. The whole family did. My grandpa did. My grandpa had a dramatic UFO experience right there. And he was working on the railroad in Pennsylvania there after World War II. And he had a
My
huge.
grandfather was a railroader.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow.
I actually, it's so funny. I was actually going to be fourth generation railroad. I got hired by the railroad, but because at the time my wife was pregnant with our daughter, I couldn't just leave her while she was like almost ready to give birth, because I was supposed to leave. At the time we were living in Michigan, and then it was just like, oh yeah, you got the job, you got to go to Georgia to the ready station. You're going to be down there for this amount of weeks. And I'm like, now you tell me, like, I can't just pack up and leave a pregnant wife back home by
Oh,
herself. But
yeah.
yeah, my grandfather worked for the Pennsylvania Railroad, and when everything got closed down, he transferred to Amtrak. He went to Amtrak. But yeah, my
Wow.
grandfather worked for the Pennsylvania Railroad for all the live long day. you know?
Yeah, so mine did too, and I wish I had his coin. And he had a watch too. I wish I had those to
Mm,
show you. But yeah, so my grandpa worked on the Pennsylvania Railroad after World War II, and he was there at the Ohio. They lived in Newcastle, and then
yeah.
he was there at the border of Ohio near the Ohio River, and they were laying track. And this was his first job after coming back from World War II. He had been a medic in World War II, like at
Mm.
18. I mean, just, the greatest generation.
Babies, man. They were babies.
Yeah.
They were
Yeah.
such babies. Not to
Yeah.
interrupt your subject, but for my birthday yesterday, my wife got me a 1944 food ration coin from World War II.
Oh,
So,
wow.
because I'm such big into the World War II
Yeah.
history, it came with a certificate of authenticity and stuff. But this is the little tiny. It's no bigger than a button, and this is what you would
Wow.
give to get your bread, your milk, your meat, whatever you had to get. But yeah, it's
Hmm.
crazy. But the guys that did that, like, you're 18 years old. Half these kids lied about their age just to get over there to do what they had to do.
Yeah, and they didn't complain about it, and they were tough as
Mm-mm.
nails. Like I look at my kids now, and I'm thinking, 18. My goodness, you're just like you said, you're a baby. And
Mm-hmm.
but geez, my grandpa was over there. He talked about guys getting glass. Because he was the medic, so he saw the worst of the worst. Guys getting glass, blown up in their faces and having eyes full of glass and not having enough morphine. And I mean, geez, and then he just came back and went to work on the railroad. Like, they were tough. They
Yeah, they were.
were tough. Um,
It's so funny because I just did a podcast. I guess it was a couple episodes ago. We talked about kids today. You know,
mm,
feelings and like that generation where they lied to go overseas and fight. You had kids at 16 years old going, lying that they were 18 or using their cousin's name or their brother's name. And they were going
mhm,
overseas and they were fighting and they were jumping out of planes and, paratroopers and whatnot. And these guys fought and fought and fought. And, they come back home and, these were the men that were tough as nails, the men that helped build what was coming. But now the kids today, it's they just feel as though that they are deserving of everything. They don't want to work for it and things like that, and feelings get hurt and I need to hug a puppy and things like that.
right.
And
Yeah.
it's just like, come on, man, these guys, they busted their ass overseas and did what they had to do and came home, and I'm sure a lot of them suffered through and PTSD and whatnot,
Mhm,
and but you didn't see the complaints about it like you do today
mm-mm,
about certain things, and it's just like, come on.
right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, yeah, they can't even imagine. What is the saying? Weak times make great men, and great times make weak men, I think is how it goes. And yeah, I mean, like the kids, like, we remember our World War II grandparents, but that generation's pretty much
yeah,
gone now. And,
yeah, it is it. And it's crazy because I reminisce a lot about growing up. I grew up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. That's where I'm from. And
mhm,
I corner stores, penny candy,
right.
hopscotch, bottle
Yeah,
caps in the street, going, things like that. And kids today, it's just like, here, let me hold this phone to my face for 10 hours a day. and,
I
and
know.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's nuts.
it's so different. I mean, just to go outside and nobody wants to. Kids don't want to drive. They're not excited about cars. I don't know that they get. They don't get very excited about much. And we can't meet. We
Cheaper to get
can't
an
meet.
Uber.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And let somebody else drive. But we can't meet our military, quotas.
Hmm.
It's not there's no patriotism, there's no sense of duty to your country anymore. Like there's very little of that. And
Yeah,
that's concerning. Maybe our technology and our AI will be enough to kind of make up for that. I don't know, but yeah, it was definitely, they were the greatest generation. That's amazing. I bet there's some overlap with our families then there in
you
Pennsylvania.
never know. I,
Yeah.
my, yeah, it's crazy that, my mom side of the family, my grandfather, her dad, he was railroad. His father was railroad and whatnot. And they lived in, he grew up in Germantown, Germantown, Philadelphia. And it was so
Uh-huh.
funny, I remember the day that we had to move my great grandparents out of that house. And I was just a wee kid, I had to have been maybe 8, 9 years old. But they had that staircase, and I call it the Munster staircase. Okay. From the TV show The Munsters. They had
Yeah.
that statue that sat at the bottom of the steps and it rocked, But
Oh, wow.
grandpop had, yeah, he had the old moonshine hit, like hiding areas underneath the floorboards in the bedrooms. If you opened up the floorboards in the closet, was the laundry chute to the basement, things like that. I mean, but yeah, it's just the craftsmanship, the things that they did back then. It's all gone. It's sad to see it all disappear, and the way everything is today. But there's still, you get to certain areas of Pennsylvania and Philadelphia and outskirts and stuff like that, but there are some still good solid rock foundation homes and that stand out and respect and enjoy the whole heritage of that area, and it's,
Hmm.
but like you were saying, it's like the kids today too, they don't want to drive, they don't want to go out, they just can point and click and do everything from home. Why go outside?
Yeah, it's going to be a difficult way to fight a war. I don't know how this is going to
Yeah.
go, but yeah.
you
Well,
know
yeah.
it
awesome. Yeah. Yeah. My
Yeah,
whole family. So they had UFO experiences and encounters there in Pennsylvania. And then they moved to New Mexico and continued to have UFO experiences and encounters. So it seems like it didn't matter where they lived, the
they were
UFOs were
following you.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically.
So
Yeah.
what, one of the other big things I know we didn't get a whole lot of time to talk about, but I also wanted to talk about the whole, um, maybe we can do this on another episode. We can retouch on a few things, but I like to dive deep into that bell, the Nazi bell, the time travel, the whole, thing about that. But as I was saying before, I'm a big believer. I believe in a lot of this like what if situation. So I don't know, like that whole time travel thing with the bell clicks with me. I don't know if you've seen the show or watched any of it, but The Man in the High Castle,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it just, oh man, it's what that, it brings it all, and whatnot. But hopefully we can do this again another time too. And
Yeah.
Teresa, I deeply appreciate you coming on the show today and chit chatting with me. And I think it's awesome that we have so much in common, with the whole
Yeah.
family from Pennsylvania and the railroad and whatnot. But I mean, it was a pleasure talking to you, and I'm just excited that we were able to do this.
Me too, John. Thanks so much for having me. And yeah, I would love to do this again. And time travel, I mean, that's where it gets really cool.
Yeah, it does.
And
It really.
I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility, especially with AI the way it's going. And yeah,
Hmm.
that's probably something else our kids will get to enjoy if we haven't already. So yeah. Thanks
Awesome.
for having me.
Awesome. Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure.